warm-up.
Window 7582 Roger, score 4375, basic service equipment 1020.
So there, as predicted, some of the aircraft involved in our opening Royal Navy formation making their way out onto the runway, and on the runway we have, with wings folded, the Sea Fury T.20, operated by the Royal Navy Historic Flight, owned by Naval Aviation Limited, the operating arm of the Fly Navy Heritage Trust and Navy Wings. Our right this time, Mig-15 and Sea Fury. The Mig-15 was a design that made much use of wartime German developments in jet aircraft and engine technology that were passed on to the Soviets. The Germans, of course, had pioneered swept-wing jet designs. There was British influence in the engine, however, because while the Soviets had access to German engine technology, was seen as a better bet. To the surprise of many, the Soviets obtained a license from the British government, and they produced that engine as the Klimov RD-45, which was later improved by the Soviets as the Klimov VK-1. Mig-15s came into service with the Soviet Air Force in 1959. The following year they went to war for the first time towards the end of the Chinese Civil War, when the Chinese communists were receiving Soviet assistance in the fight against nationalist forces. But their most famous combat successes were in Korea between 1950 and 53. Chinese pilots as well as the North Koreans themselves, and it was, as I said, a group of Chinese-flown MiG-15s that those Sea Furies flying from HMS Ocean encountered on the 9th of August 1952. It was a very effective tactic of the MiG-15s to wait at altitude in large groups and then split to pounce on the aircraft of the United Nations forces. They gained air superiority over an area of northwestern Korea that became known as Mig Alley and forced the United Nations to suspend daylight attacks by the B-29 Super Fortress heavy bombers of the US Air Force in favor of night missions. However, at lower levels, the most effective UN-operated jet fighter of the Korean conflict, the North American F-86 Sabre, had the edge over the MiG, and the greater experience of the American pilots especially began to win the day, especially when later model F-86s become available. But piston engine fighters like the Sea Fury could also be very effective against the new jet. Here they are in close formation now from our right. Go over to Hangar 8 if that interests you. Into land after a beautifully smooth display with the Sea Fury Kenneth Aarkvisla, the founder and boss of the Norwegian Air Force Historical Squadron, with the which initially wasn't developed for the Fleet Air Arm at all. The idea was but they made various modifications. One of the great Fleet Air Arm carrier-borne fighters was born. The initial Mark 10 started to replace the Supermarine Seafire as the Fleet Air Arm's primary carrier-borne fighter post-war, and then production switched to the FB-11 fighter bomber, of which 650 were built. They flew in the Korean War from 3 Royal Navy carriers and 1 carrier of the Royal Canadian Navy. Later they were replaced in first line Fleet Air Arm Service by the Hawker Sea Hawk and the Supermarine Attacker. Squadrons of the Royal Navy Volunteer Reserve carried on with the Sea Fury until 1955. Non-navalised Furies, meanwhile, saw service with the air arms of Iraq and Pakistan, amongst others. have been re-engined with American engines, either Wright or Pratt & Whitney units, intended to improve the usability of the Sea Fury. Very fine engines they are too, an excellent match for the Sea Fury airframe, but there's one of the relatively few now still flying with the original Bristol Centaurus, and a superb engine it was. To give you an idea of the sort of fighter development that took place from when another of the great Hawker piston engine fighters, the Hurricane, first appeared in 1935 until the land-based Fury and navalised Sea Fury appeared in 1944-45. The Hurricane's maximum speed was some 340 miles an hour. The Sea Fury FB-11, however, was capable of a maximum of 460, but that really was towards the end of piston engine fighter development. Then it was on to the jets. This one from the Royal Navy Historic Flight, actually civilian registered and owned by Naval Aviation Limited, the operating arm of the Fly Navy Heritage Trust, otherwise known as Navy Wings, the charity that supports the operation of the Royal Navy Historic Flights aircraft, the Sea Furies and Swordfish. Also, the Sea Vixen, which is currently hopefully on the road back to flying condition. That can be seen in the static park and has a number of associate organisations, other operators who, as it were, bring their historic naval aircraft to the party. We've got several of those here, the likes of the Gazelle Squadron display team, David Bremner with his Bristol Scout, Kenneth Aarkvisla with his Tiger Moth, and others. They enable the